Professor, what on earth is going on in Minneapolis?
Ava, I think the first thing is to start pending an investigation. If we ever get an investigation, is to start with what we have seen from multiple videos, from multiple witness statements, because there's a priority here, which is to cut through a lot of disinformation, a lot of polemic, most of which has come from Trump officials. Um, First and foremost, because Alex Petty, 37, intensive care unit nurse, in a Veterans Administration unit. So caring for many men and women who are nearing the end of their lives or in hospice. He was at a site in Minneapolis where Immigration's Custom Enforcement Border Patrol apparently were trying to detain an undocumented immigrant. I will say also an undocumented immigrant who does not have a criminal record, despite what some Trump people later said falsely. Now, this is common in Minneapolis now, that when ICE and the Border Patrol show up, there are people, think of it as a neighborhood watch. There are people who come out to monitor those armed personnel, often masked, and what they're doing. They will give warnings, such as whistles, car horns. They will film them for documentation as to what happens. Because remember, if you do not document something, you will fall victim to the way that it will be covered up, falsified, recreated. Documentation is essential. So Alex Petty's filming. Now, he's not obstructing, and this is interesting. He's not obstructing ICE or Border Patrol. In fact, he waits them to come through. He is in the middle of the street. ICE and Border Patrol officers turn their attention to another observer, a woman, and they begin to beat her. It's an assault. They push her to the ground. They pepper spray her. And there are several of them, not just one. And Alex Petty moves over, still holding the phone, to try to intervene, to try to stop this. As he nears this, some of the ICE and Border Patrol personnel turn their attention to him. They knock him to the ground. And you can see in one image from the videos that comes out that he's got the phone in his right hand. He's got the left hand trying to brace himself as he's about to hit the ground. He is not, and I will emphasize this, brandishing a gun. And this will be important. He is not brandishing a gun. When he is on the ground, the officers remove a gun which he is carrying with a legal permit. Seconds after they remove that gun from his pocket, Alex Petty is executed. Now, you will note the verb. I could have said killed. I could have said murdered. Executed. A disarmed man who poses no threat at that moment, whose crime had been to intervene on behalf of a woman who was being assaulted. An officer fires not just one, but multiple shots into his prone body. And he kills him. Soon after the shooting, in a horrible refrain of what we had after the killing of Renee Nicole Good a few weeks ago, Donald Trump and his officials hit social media and hit their other media outlets like Fox TV. Sorry, I can't call it Fox News, Fox TV. And they try to frame the narrative. And the narrative is that Alex Petty was brandishing that gun and threatening the lives of those officers. Therefore, they acted in self-defense. That came out from Trump. It came out from Christine Elm, the Homeland Security Secretary. It came out from Gregory Pavino, the head of Border Patrol. But there were videos. Now, there was a suspicion that, as happened after the Renee Nicole Good case, that they would try to block videos from coming out and prevent any exposure of what had been done. This time they didn't. And when the videos come out, they testify to what I've just told you. By the time we get to yesterday, so Alex Petty's killed on a Saturday, and by the time we get to the Sunday morning talk shows, this is really important in the United States political culture. I mean, for decades, people will go on to the various outlets, CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, now the alternative stations, News Nation, Newsmax, and politicians, legislators, activists will come on. So the Trump people put out a parade of their people. They put out Gregory Bovino first, who's the head of Border Patrol. This is the guy who's been marching around military style. I mean, literally military style with uniformed guys around him. And then puts out a promotional video of him recently, for example, throwing tear gas at protesters. Bovino comes on, and he will not say, he can no longer say that Petty was brandishing a gun because the videos don't stand it up. So he says, well, I'll leave that to them to investigate it. But when he is asked about the victim here, do you have any words for the victim? He says, those Border Patrol officers are the victims. The executioner is the victim. And as I have said more than once in recent weeks, George Orwell gives a silent clap from his grave for that blatant. It's not just a falsehood, Abe. It's not just a man is dead. And yet, rather than saying we're going to investigate, rather than just saying nothing at all, you then have to trash and demean and belittle that man who is the victim. And you have to render him, even beyond his execution, as being this threat. Bovino is followed by Kash Patel, the FBI director, Kristi Noem, the director of Homeland Security, Todd Blanche, effectively Donald Trump's lawyer, but who has been put into Justice Department as the Deputy Attorney General. And they put out a stream of follow-up narratives. And again, it's interesting because of the videos, they cannot say, again, they cannot repeat their original false narrative, but they will continue to insist that Alex Petty was the threat here and law enforcement was merely doing its job. And then they'll go further. They will gaslight. And rather than those ICE and Border Patrol agents, they will say that the real danger in Minnesota is the governor, Tim Walz. Because Tim Walz has dared say, we need to de-escalate this. We need to de-escalate. We need to work with the federal government to de-escalate this. And we need peaceful protest in the meantime. They will say that Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who has passionately called for the withdrawal of ICE, to just ease these tensions, that he is the one to blame here. In fact, they had been calling, even before Alex Petty's execution, for the prosecution of Walz and Frey. On what charges, I don't know, but they'd been calling for them. And then the protesters of this threat. These never hate watch folks. Now, I will put a challenge out here to those who make comments and so on, because I respect them. Come back and point us to video of instigation of violence by demonstrators and by protesters. Point me to video to that, right? Point me to a single piece of documented evidence that these people who are monitoring what is happening are paid outside agitators or radicals, rather than residents wanting their neighborhoods to be secure. Schools secure, stores secure, businesses secure. Point me to something that says they are agitators and not that. Because what happened systematically yesterday is, having failed to get the false narrative out of Alex Petty effectively going out with guns blazing, all of a sudden it was these left-wing radical protests that caused all the problems. Now, let me give you a fundamental. If ICE did not charge into Minneapolis for political reasons, and we can explain what those political reasons are in a minute, If they did not charge into Minnesota for political reasons earlier this month, Renee Nicole Good would be alive. Alex Petty would be alive. Neighborhoods would not have been torn up. Cars would not have been trashed. Businesses would not have been forced to close. That's your fundamental that you take place there. But by the time we get to this morning on Fox's website, I suspect, I cannot prove, but I suspect from a government official who either obtained this through a source or hacked into signal conversations, there is this stream of signal exchanges, which Fox portrays as being radical leftist, talking about their movement. They're not. Even in the extracts, if you read it, they are people who are discussing with each other where they mobilize to monitor what ICE and Border Patrol are doing. And another quick reminder, because administration officials flat out lied yesterday, you have the right to demonstrate in the United States. You have the right to film in a public space in the United States. You have the right to whistle, to honk your horn in the United States, as long as you do not impede an active operation. There is no possibility of criminal activity that took place. But we've heard this phrase again, paraphrasing a bit, but Zoe Mamdani used it again yesterday, the New York mayor. George Orwell's 1984, the final command of the party was, do not believe your eyes. Do not believe what you see with your eyes. Do not believe what you hear with your ears. And that is where we're confronted, in that you have multiple battles here. You have a fundamental battle, which is simply to get to the heart of what has happened in an event. And then you have the battle on top of it, which is that those in power will try to deny you from doing that. And so this has been a long answer, but let me just give you the broader conclusion. A year ago, after a number of other incidents I can talk about, harassing people who try to get into the United States, demanding their social media, denying them entry, tarring, stigmatizing protesters, ignoring courts, belittling courts, ignoring the Constitution. I said, the government in my native country may be an authoritarian regime. It's not may now. The government in my country is an authoritarian regime. And they're using shock troops. And they've chosen Minnesota to be the primary case. It could have been Los Angeles. It could have been D.C. It could have been Memphis, Tennessee. It's wound up being Minnesota. And this is their test case. They will not back down. If they back down, they can no longer be authoritarian. They've given way. So they doubled now. And I'm afraid, I wish I could be more cheerful on a Monday morning, but it is now time to say that this is now red alert. And it will be on multiple fronts. We talked about Minnesota, but we can talk about what's happening elsewhere in the United States and talk about what's happening abroad.